All right, today we are diving deep into India's union budget for 2026-2027. Now, this isn't just some dry government document. It's a blueprint that's literally going to shape the nation's economy and, impact millions and millions of lives.
So is it just a 100-page document full of numbers, or is it something more, like your future, laid out in print? Let's get into it and find out what this massive financial plan really means for the country, and more importantly, for you.
Okay, so first things first. We got to look at the grand economic plan, right? What's the big idea here? What's the government's core philosophy for actually steering India's growth? Well, it all boils down to a three-pronged approach. And here's the quote that really sets the stage. The finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, talks about the government's sankalp, or resolve, being inspired by three kartavya, three duties. Now, think of these duties as the bedrock, the foundation for absolutely everything else we're going to talk about today. Every policy, every rupee spent, it all ties back to these three core ideas.
So what are these three duties? First, it's all about hitting the accelerator on economic growth and making sure it's sustainable. Second, it's about fulfilling the aspirations of the people, building up their capacity to succeed. And third, and this is a big one, ensuring development is inclusive for everyone. The whole Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas idea. It's a pretty powerful framework, right?
Okay, let's talk numbers. The first big one you need to know is around 7%. That's the projected GDP growth rate. And you might think, okay, 7%, what does that really mean for me? Well, it's huge. Sustained high growth is basically the engine that powers everything. It creates jobs, it pulls people out of poverty, and it raises the standard of living for all of us. So how do you keep that engine running without overheating? You've got to be smart with your money. And that's exactly what this chart shows, a path of what's called fiscal prudence. The government is aiming to shrink the fiscal deficit, which is just the gap between what it earns and what it spends, down to 4.3% of GDP. It's kind of like the government tightening its own belt, to make sure the whole economy stays strong for the long haul. And here's another crucial number, 55.6%. That is the target for the debt to GDP ratio. Now, the easiest way to think about this is like the country's credit score. The lower that number, the better. The healthier the economy looks to the rest of the world. And getting this ratio down is so important because it means we can spend less money paying off old debt and more on things we actually need, like better roads, schools, and hospitals. All right, so we've seen the big economic picture. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this all translate into action? We're going to start with a massive push to build what they're calling a Made in India future.
So the government is essentially placing some really big strategic bets on key industries. We're talking a 10,000 crore rupee outlay for Biopharma Shakti. The goal is to become a global biopharma powerhouse. Then there's the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0, which is all about getting into the chip-making game, a full-stack domestic IP. Plus, they're pumping 40,000 crore into electronics components and another 10,000 crore into container manufacturing. The message here is crystal clear. Build a competitive ecosystem and create champion companies right here in India.
Okay, so building up industries is one thing. But what about the things that affect us day to day? Let's shift gears and talk about a huge issue for pretty much every Indian family, the healthcare crisis, and specifically those soaring costs.
And this quote from a partner at Deloitte really hits the nail on the head. He says medical inflation in India is among the highest in the world, and without some serious intervention, it's just going to keep going up. We're talking 12 to 15% a year. Think about that. That's probably way faster than your salaries increasing, right? It means one unexpected health issue could be financially devastating. And if you want to see the stark reality, just look at this table. The numbers are just, wow. The cost of cancer treatment, for example, has shot up from around 30 lakhs to nearly 51 lakhs in just 4 years. And it's the same story for heart transplants, kidney transplants. These are life-saving procedures that are becoming incredibly unaffordable for so many people. So, with costs spiraling like that, what's the plan? What is the budget's prescription for this problem?
Well, it looks like a multi-pronged approach. First, that Biopharma Shakti plan we mentioned. A big part of that is to produce affordable biologic medicines right here, domestically. Then they're setting up 5 new regional medical hubs to bring top-notch care closer to people and also boost medical tourism. There's also a really welcome focus on mental health with a new NIMHNS 2 campus planned for North India. And get this,
They're increasing emergency and trauma care capacity in district hospitals by 50%. That's a huge deal. Okay, so we've talked big picture economy, we've talked industries, we've talked healthcare. Now for the part you've probably been waiting for, taxes. Let's break down the new tax rules and what they actually mean for your wallet. So the biggest headline here is a complete overhaul. We're getting a brand new Income Tax Act for 2026. The whole idea behind this is to simplify things, to make tax compliance less of a nightmare for the ordinary citizen. And honestly, that's something a lot of people have been asking for. And here's a change that you'll feel directly, especially if you love to travel. You know that tax collected at source, or TCS, on overseas tours, it used to be 5 or even 20%. Well, they're slashing it down to a flat 2%. That's a pretty significant saving that leaves more cash in your pocket for your actual trip. This next one is all about cutting through red tape. For small taxpayers, getting a certificate for lower or nil TDS, tax deducted at source, used to be a real pain. You had to go through a whole process. Now it's all moving online. You apply online, a rule-based system processes it automatically, and you get the certificate right there after electronic verification. It's a huge step towards making things simpler. And this simplification doesn't stop there. There are a few other key changes to make life easier. They're staggering the filing dates, so non-audit business cases now get until August 31st to file. There's also a special one-time 6-month window for small taxpayers to disclose any foreign assets. And you'll now have more time to revise your returns, right up to March 31st, for a small fee. All of these are really aimed at one thing, easing the burden on individual taxpayers. So, when you put it all together, what do we have? It's an ambitious blueprint for Viksit Bharat, or a developed India. The goals are clear: high growth, a self-reliant industrial base, and tangible relief for people on healthcare and taxes. But the big question remains, right? Will these plans actually meet the aspirations of the people? As with any budget, the proof will be in the pudding. The success of this whole roadmap really depends on how well it's executed on the ground.